Somebody heard me. It's great. Oh, thank you. What's your role? Yeah, because sometimes I dial a number of I don't know. You put it well, I mean, it's not close to any. So I ignore this, I'm like, penalties if you expect me to call you back, unless I can leave a message. Well, they pick names for real people. Oh, really? That, yeah.
Okay.
Call them back. Welcome, everybody, to the June 7th, 2023 Town Board meeting. And I'll start the meeting with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. And not intending to state the obvious, but before privilege of the floor, I'm just at 6 o'clock tonight, the governor had a conference for the air quality issue that we're experiencing. So everybody should be aware of that by now. You can't miss it. It is a health advisory over the whole state except the Adirondacks. And so especially if you have health issues, you should limit outside activity. The Tompkins County Whole Health Department has information on their website, and they do so the problems, the fine particulates that are driven down low from the forest fires in Canada, and the N95 masks are do help with that. So if you are outside, especially, that's something you should consider, and also limiting outdoor activity, especially exertion. So it's supposed to improve. I think today was supposed to be the worst day, but it's still going to be bad tomorrow. This is something else. I think it's going to improve over the weekend, but they don't know what's going to happen after that because it depends on the weather patterns, and those forest fires are still going all across Canada. So I just wanted to mention that before we get started. So I will open the meeting with opportunity to speak to the board at privilege of the floor. Just remember the guidelines, 3 minutes. We don't always track time, but please try to be respectful of that. Please do direct the comments to the board, and comments shouldn't be directed between speakers or critical of other speakers. So I just wanted to refresh everyone's memory on that. So I will open for privilege of the floor, and I did see Chad Novelli's name on the list over there earlier. Chad, go ahead.
Well, I'm always aware that when these things happen, I'm used to sort of a crowd of not always unanimously opinioned people. So I always have that sort of in the background. But I'm going to skip all that right now, just to say, obviously, I support the work of the zoning commission. I have seen in years past where we get these citizens commissions and they do an enormous amount of good work, and then for whatever reason things change and the work doesn't get fully utilized. When when Ed and I were on the planning board, it was really important to us that we sort of stand on the shoulders of the work that came before and try to set it up so that the work that we were doing could be carried on. We were just very conscious of that, and I think when it came to our work on the first update of the comprehensive plan, we were able to pass that along. And it was carried out in like remarkable fashion by successive people on the planning board. And all the work that we did on the survey, which to me, which I've said before, you've heard me say it, but to get 4 times the response that Cornell told us would be a good, valid response, to get 4 times that just tells you the level of citizen involvement and interest and participation. And so for the next planning board people, carry that on, turn into a comprehensive plan, which called for zoning, to consider zoning, not to do zoning, but to consider it. And then to see it now at this step with a lot of work by another highly committed citizen board, is I just think speaks volumes for the work that you're all doing and that everybody's doing. And I think we should, as much as we can, continue to build on that. The last thing I would say is that some of the yard signs and the sort of the divisive language that I hear, I don't think is really us, and I think it really takes away from kinds of discussions that we really should be having, and to me are more, and I think it's really how most of the people in this community that I work with are, when you get right down to a person, we all care about pretty much the same things. And so we just talk with each other and are willing to be open, which from what I can tell, you all are, then I think a good zoning law is our best bet. If the people who are opposed to it could come to me with a similarly well-crafted idea to accomplish the things that the comprehensive plan asked for, I'd be happy to look at it, but that's an enormous amount of work. And I haven't seen it, so I think the local zoning laws are the best bet, and I support it and endorse it.
Great, thank you, Chad.
Yeah.
Rebecca's name is on there now. I didn't sign.
Let me check Zoom. Jesse, does anyone have their hand raised on Zoom?
There's 2 participants raised hand.
Oh, okay. I don't know why we're not seeing
Can we
that.
hear?
Hi,
Just
I'm unmuted now.
Okay, great.
Okay, hi, I'm Barbara Baird Holoka. I spoke at a Caroline Town Council meeting about a month ago, and I'm back again because of a couple of things that got my attention and really kind of scared me in just that short time. So as a quick reintroduction, I'm registered as an independent voter in Tompkins County and town of Caroline. I grew up in rural Illinois, but moved to the area in my 20s, about 50 years ago. My husband, David, and I have lived on Beesmer Road for more than 40 years. Our 3 sons grew up here and attended Caroline Elementary School. Our family loves this place and feels part of it. As I described previously, I attended and listened carefully at several zoning commission hearings. And after considerable thought, I came down strongly in favor of responsible zoning, and I support the draft zoning law. So why am I back? Well, last Sunday, probably some of you saw it, a national newspaper, the New York Times, ran a full-page story on the struggle in a rural Virginia community about an outside company, happened to be Dollar General, buying farmland to build a new store at a rural intersection and very near the locally owned and run general store that had been there for multiple years. This has disrupted the community in a situation similar to what we have felt here. And I thought it was a balanced story, and it discussed all the issues, pros and cons, we have thought about in our town. Now, I understand that our proposed zoning would not exclude Dollar General or stores like that from our town, and that's fine with me. Really, that's not the point that worries me. What worries me is the outside force coming to buy land, set up almost anywhere, and do anything. So here's what scares me even more. It came in a letter to my husband that we received recently from a firm called Land Strive from Newport Beach, California. And I'll just read a little bit from that letter. Dear David, we would like to purchase your land in Tompkins County. The source of your ownership record is from the Tompkins County Assessor. This information is public record and available to anyone who requests it. Land Strive is a property investment company that prides itself on quick, professional, easy transactions and seller satisfactions. We can deliver a cashier's check to your door in as little as 3 days for the purchase price of the property. We will pay all the associated costs of completing this transaction. So, should we sell our land to Land Strive in California to come to Caroline and do whatever they want? I wouldn't be surprised if a number of people in Caroline got a very similar letter. And I think it's very, very scary given the situation we're in now. As I said, I feel strongly that the proposed zoning with guidance and oversight by local governance provides a pathway to preserving what is most important in our Caroline. We can't let outside forces determine the future essence of our town. And before I close, I just want to say I really appreciate the comments of Chad Novelli. I applaud him and I agree with him completely. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Rebecca, did you want to speak?
I do.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So I've also come to express my support for the general concept of zoning and for the draft zoning law being considered by this board. I support zoning because 1, I believe in people, which means that I believe in our capacity for cooperation and for representative self-governance. And 2, I believe in planning and preparing for the future as a community. I know that zoning, like many regulatory frameworks, has been used in discriminatory ways, and in those iterations, it deserves critique and reform. And I'm grateful that folks in Caroline opposed to zoning have challenged us to be aware of the racism and classism perpetrated by other zoning efforts elsewhere. I'm heartened that despite the often rancorous disagreements, one place that people agree is that systemic racism and classism exist, and we should be critically aware of this when crafting ordinances or laws. Our debates around this issue have made for a better and stronger proposed zoning law that reflects a commitment to economic racial justice, and I'm grateful for that. And this underscores my belief in us and in our government. I know we're not perfect, I know it's not perfect, and there are problems and challenges, particularly when the divisions are as deep as they are everywhere in our country and in our beloved town. Yet despite our challenges and our deep disagreements, I still believe in and trust our ability to govern ourselves more than I trust, for example, profiteering corporations. This zoning law has many safeguards, exemption clauses, and opportunities for amendments or course corrections built into it. It is designed for citizen redress, freedom, empowerment, and regulatory accountability while trying to plan for our common future as a diverse town. A future which will be shaped increasingly by ecological unraveling and climate chaos. I doubt very much that corporations wishing to come here and extract profit from us, like, for example, Dollar General style vulture capitalism, will offer us similar avenues for our own collective empowerment. Speaking of empowerment, I grow a fair amount of my family's food every year. I put up enough potatoes, garlic, onions, tomatoes, and black beans to get us through the winter. This has been among the driest planting seasons that I remember. Meanwhile, the UN reports that we can expect more wildfires darkening our skies, as they have this week. with ever more dangerous levels of toxic pollution in the coming years, and water cycles will continue to be more and more unpredictable. Our world is telling us that we take for granted clean water and clean air literally at our own peril. I appreciate that this proposed zoning law tries to protect what is precious to all of us about this place that we all call home. Just as corporations see profit opportunities in places whose local economies have been dismantled by globalized outside extractive forces, so they see money to be made bottling water and selling it back to the people used to having it flow freely. It has happened elsewhere and it can happen here. We are on top of a huge aquifer. Without a zoning law that expressly protects water resources as this proposed law does, I fear that there is very little we could do if one of our neighbors wanted to sell to a water bottling company like Nestle. I see zoning being one of very few tools small municipalities have to push back against corporate hegemony and profit extraction, and to at least put parameters around rich corporations' abilities to do whatever they want to make money, particularly as that relates in the climate change world to water. For all these reasons and more, I support this proposed law, and I hope that you will too.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Can you please have your name? I'm sorry.
I'm Rebecca Schulman.
Thank you.
I think, oh, there was another speaker on Zoom, correct?
Yes, I think you can hear me now. Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, my name is Sean Malarche, and me and my husband moved to Caroline about 20 years ago. And we were able to build our dream home here, which is an alternative structure. One of the things that attracted us to this community was its openness to creative, innovative endeavors like building this house, which under some restrictions would not have been allowed in certain communities. So I've had the privilege of living all over the world, and I've lived in some places that are completely bogged down by restrictions and regulations. And I understand people's concern around that. I lived in one community where you couldn't flush your toilet after 10 p.m. So it can get quite overwhelming. But I've also seen the results of unplanned growth, which can be equally destructive and chaotic. I'm really grateful to the group that's worked on this plan for several years now, and I guess even before that, as I heard from the earlier speaker. And I'm so grateful for these opportunities to engage with the community and hear from each other. One of my favorite things about Caroline is the community, and I've seen and experienced how neighbors here care and take care of each other and watch over each other. And I've seen that also to some degree in this zoning plan as it's been developing. I am supportive of the zoning plan, and I know that zoning can help us plan for that future, maybe a future that none of us will necessarily see, but that certainly those that come after us will see. And it helps us take care of the things that we don't even know maybe coming down the road, but helps us prepare to address some of those. I also want to acknowledge the deep concern that I've heard from my fellow neighbors, and I trust that the plan and those working on it will continue to find compromise and help us reach a place where we can all have a zoning plan that helps us build towards that future that we want to see. I wanted to specifically express my support and appreciation for the work around preservation of natural resources, such as our watershed. It is very clear in the plan, both the purpose of why we want that type of zoning, and then it's very clear how the zoning that is being proposed is evidence-based and how it will address those concerns. And that is really helpful to see. I would say in some of the other places, it's a little unclear how the zoning is addressing some of the proposed purposes in the plan. And it would be helpful, I think, if some of that connection could be made a little clearer. And then how some of the zoning that is proposed in the bill will address those purposes. Thank you for this time.
Great, thank you, Sean. Report. Is there anyone else on the list over there? I think we go.
Mark, Bill Podolka has his hand up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if there's someone in the room that wants to speak first, that's fine, Mark.
Okay, I'll call on the speaker in the room first then. Bill, so Peter Hoyt.
Thanks. So if any of these remarks seem to be addressed to any person in the room or in response to anything, that is purely coincidental. These are some general remarks. When a change is proposed, something being introduced, in this case zoning, I don't think that there is a symmetry in the sense that people who are opposed to it have to argue so much as to why it shouldn't be. I think the burden of explanation and the burden of proof, if you will, is on the proponents. So I'll just let that stand for a minute. I also think that if somebody like Dollar General were to come in and buy something purportedly with the result of putting an established store out of business, then the local people can choose to not patronize the Dollar Generals. And also major issues that affect the nation, perhaps the world at large, such as climate change, don't really seem to be appropriately addressed by local ordinances. The other thing I wanted to say was that this whole approach of bringing in a consultant and foisting a 138-page boilerplate on the township seems backwards to me. It looked like before he arrived with that, members of the zoning commission were starting from the ground up, build a list of what sort of things do we want to consider, what sort of things do we want to look at. And then as soon as that boilerplate came in, now it's starting to work on this document and kind of forgetting, you know, what the organic, if you will, desires of the townspeople were. And now after a year and a half of a lot of hours and a lot of hard work, we have a document that's at least as long, if not longer, than the original one. And a lot of people are complaining that it isn't so much zoning that they don't want, it's just this particular implementation of it. So having summarized those, that I leave that. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Bill Podolka, go ahead.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I am Bill Podolka. Just I want to make it a little clear, you know, I will be attending the meeting. So again, since I was on the zoning commission, as in past meetings, I'm happy to provide information about what the zoning commission was thinking or doing, factual stuff like that. And I will make a pretty bright line between that role and the role I have now, which I'm going to use privilege of the floor to advocate certain positions. So I'm going to try to keep a very, you know, clear demarcation in my roles here. But I will first address a point just brought up, because this has been going around a bit about boilerplate language, et cetera. Since I was involved in the process, let me just clarify a little bit for the board, for those who don't know, that the consultant was involved in the project early on, helped draft a short summary in conjunction with the zoning commission members of major points to be addressed by a zoning law, was present for many zoning commission discussions about what the goals of the zoning should be for the town, and then made a presentation to the town in December of some year, 2 years ago roughly, that presented sort of the outlines of the draft plan the zoning commission was coming up with. We got some feedback from the town at that point, and based on that and our discussions, we basically turned to the consultant and said, would you please draft a law based on our discussions? And that is exactly what that consultant did. It was not a piece of boilerplate. I can guarantee you, our consultant did not go to zoningplans.com and download rural zoning plan A. Those who can look at even the first draft will see that various sizes, setbacks, acreages, et cetera, are all based on data for Caroline. And I can tell you that the points and principles in there were indeed drawn on the discussions of the zoning commission. So this critique that this is a boilerplate law, well, some parts are boilerplate, yeah, because those parts are dictated by the state and they must be just like that. The rest of this document is unique to Caroline. Did our consultant on occasion perhaps say, oh, that thing the zoning commission was saying was similar to this part of this plan I wrote for this other rural town? I certainly hope she did, because part of what we were getting in hiring her was her experience and wisdom and a little bit of cost savings because she didn't have to write every single word from scratch. But that is different than saying it's boilerplate. Every single piece of this was crafted by her to be for Caroline based on our observations, and that we then further honed to be relevant to Caroline. Having had to say all that, I'm going to quickly say part of what I was going to say, and then the other part we'll have to wait for another meeting. I want to clarify something I sort of garbled last meeting. The DEC in its recommendations for riparian buffer has 3 zones, and they had varying widths as much because they were different vegetation types as different functions. And it wasn't meant to take any one of those as like you can go as small as this. The DEC makes very clear what the intent was, that if one of them is smaller, another one should be larger. At the bottom of that table, they say, and there's a quote, the total recommended width of all 3 zones is at least 100 feet. Riparian buffers that are at least 100 feet provide the minimum protection for water quality and stream protection. And with that in mind, I want to, congratulate the board, thank you to the board for maintaining that 100-foot riparian buffer in the non-hamlet zones. And I do understand that there's, where people have settled close to streams, as we have in our hamlets, there has to be a balancing act between the historical human uses and our more modern scientific knowledge of how to protect streams. And so I think that balancing act is exactly what the town board appropriately did by reducing that buffer, but also easing some of the restrictions in all the buffers by adding in some more uses. I think that was, again, I applaud you for that. I think that was a wise choice. It's not an easy choice, but is an appropriate one in balancing the social and political needs with the scientific protection needs. However, I cannot support the rather tiny 20-foot buffer width that was given for intermittent streams. And I have done some looking into recommendations for intermittent streams, and I actually haven't found anything that separates those out from perennial streams. And I'm no expert on this, but I can say that when you step back and think about it, that might make sense. Because if you allow development and parking and stuff right near even an intermittent stream, so that the fuels and the oils and the pesticides build up, then come snow melt in spring and all the rains, that flushes right into the intermittent stream, and those connect to perennial streams, and there it is in your watershed. So there really isn't a whole lot of justification for making the buffer width smaller for intermittent streams, even though they don't run all the year. I do understand, again, the intrusiveness of these. And for that reason, the zoning commission chose 50 feet for intermittent streams. That's not necessarily a scientific number. That, again, was a balancing act between scientific and social and political needs. I can see you guys examining that, but I would really rather see that 50-foot distance reestablished, or at least something closer to that, rather than what I consider to be a almost inconsequential 20 feet. And I will conclude my comments there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Bruce Murray.
Yep. I'll disagree with Bill a little bit, just because I was on the commission also. And yes, we did change a lot, but we were submitted a very large law to start out with. We did make a lot of changes. A lot of things we did not change. As far as the streams and the buffers go, I've been a staunch supporter of the DEC has protected our streams forever, and we have not had any problems. Some of the distances that we have, I wasn't aware that you changed something to 20 feet, but because the DEC I know will protect at 50 feet no matter what. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was I've lived on my land for 35 years, and yes, in the last 4 years, I probably have gotten at least every 3 months some kind of an offer for somebody who wants to buy property from cell towers to mostly residential people. And so, yeah, growth is coming, but as to whether locals are going to sell or not, that's up to them. And I'm not anticipating ever doing it. And it's something that you would weigh as a citizen as to who you would sell to or who you wouldn't sell to.
Thank you, Bruce. Anyone else in Zoom land that wishes to speak before we open the meeting?
I don't see anybody, Mark.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry that I don't have the participant list up and I'm fumbling around, so thank you. Okay, so we will go ahead and start the meeting. So I do have a couple of things to add to the agenda. I would like to add a discussion of the file cabinetry and furniture for the town court, and offering a town board resolution on that. I will, I guess I'll seek approval for the Ecrus Road RFP to get that project moving. So that's for a culvert project on Ecrus Road on Boyer Creek. And then approval of signage of the contract document for starting the engineering assessment for the highway burn, the new highway burn project. And then I will also offer executive session to discuss proposed acquisition of real property. So those are my additions. And with that, I will open up with the highway superintendent's report, which he mailed to us today, and ask if anybody has any questions, I guess. So he summarized the road work. I will read through it briefly for the benefit of people listening, because I don't have it prepared to post visually. So road work, patching potholes, grading gravel roads, finished a project on Beaver Creek Road, which was stream bank stabilization. Finished roadside drainage project on Speed Hill Road. They've begun roadside mowing, preparing for surface treatment, oil and stone on approximately 11 miles of town roads. Equipment, the Dodge 4500 that we authorized last month has been ordered from Robert Green's truck division. The capital highway projects that he listed were, I guess, road work on White Church Road. Core samples were taken in order to understand the existing road construction in preparation for that work. And then they're working with Tompkins County Highway on drainage from Weaver Road to White Church Road in preparation for road resurfacing. And then under miscellaneous, hydro seeding on Baylor Road, Landon Road, Speed Hill Road, and Beaver Creek Road. Working with Tompkins County on a four-way stop at the intersection of Buffalo Road and 76 Road. And then Bob and Bill attended the 76th Annual Highway School earlier this week. And then finally, we've been currently looking into a small portable speed monitor for highway speed that we've been discussing for a while. So that's Bob's report. And are there any questions or feedback for Bob from the board?
Mark?
Tim, go ahead. Yeah.
I was under the impression that we already had a speed checking machine. Can you just clarify that with Bob?
We
have one,
We definitely have one.
and we'd like to get a couple more. To
Is
post
the one that is- Cal, do you know if the one that we have is functioning now?
It's displaying the speed. But that's about it. I mean, that's, I know it's working and displaying speed if you drive by and it's reasonably accurate.
Oh, good. Is it installed somewhere?
It's at the highway barns.
Just in front of the highway barn.
Yeah,
I think there were some issues about the logging, it should be able to log, what speeds are at different times, but that hasn't happened.
I think Jesse was working with Bobby on that.
Yeah.
Jesse, can you chime in here about what's wrong with that thing?
Sure, it never got connected to the modem or whatever down there. Lisa from Computing Center about 6 months ago was supposed to come out and get it going. I know there was an appointment last week, but the highway barns was closed and they missed each other. So I presume that that's gonna get on the list again when
Okay,
it has time.
great. Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Yeah, that would be good to follow up with that, with Bob on that. Anything else?
I might chime in that I also went to the
Yeah.
highway school
Oh, you did?
and I attended some various work. What do you call
Work sessions or
them? Work
something?
sessions, one on drainage and water detention from runoff.
Hmm.
One on CHIPS funding and reimbursement from the state, which is, we've had some changes in rules. Another one on drug and alcohol testing for crew members. And one of the things that was impressed on me was the increasing complexity in accounting for things, when roads were done. What is applicable for reimbursement from the state under the CHIPS program. It used to be 5 years, something now that's gotten moved up to 10. And just the accounting that's going to be required from the state. So, we may be in need of, some sort of computer tracking on down the road. So.
Okay,
The Association of Towns had a resolution, asking the state to maintain CHIPS funding. Well, they're maintaining the CHIPS funding, but they're stretching out the reimbursement timeline. And this is something that's just changed and there's all new staff in that department. And so you might want to be prepared for things being a little confusing. Because they did seem a little still on the learning curve. So, but it's well attended. There was like 900 people in. So.
any questions for Cal?
Did they address at all about what can be done about the speeds? Like we've talked about that, putting a single stripe in a road to decrease it. We've been talking about that for over a year. And so, And that's like on the, the Cornell Extension, Roads Extension.
Yeah.
Plan that says that would work, and yet we don't move on that. So I was just wondering if the school actually taught anything about that or.
Yes, there was,
approached that?
but it was one of those conflicting workshops where, you gotta go to this one or that one,
Uh-huh.
kind of jump, but it's an ongoing topic and, all municipalities are dealing with this.
Right, it'd just be nice to have some training for our highway crew in this, because a lot of people are concerned about
Yeah.
this safety of the roads and people walking and
Yep.
right, their homes, so.
Yeah, and just what works, it's not real expensive that can.
Right.
Simple little things, if painting a stripe down the side of the road can slow traffic.
Yeah, or, yeah, I mean, we wanted to get data from that machine that's in front of the highway barns, right? But we can't move it because it's not working, but it's been a year since we've been talking about this. It's just,
Yeah.
a year just seems really long to be able to get something fixed or move on doing
Get-
something on
getting-
this.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I just like that to be pushed.
It doesn't really need, I mean, the data is
Right.
nice, all we need to do is be able to set the speed limit and put it somewhere, right? That's what we really need.
Well, we can't set the speed limits, right? I mean,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah, no, I mean, we've been waiting for a year from NISTOD on that, so that's very frustrating, but I'm just, what we can do is try putting us, it would be nice to have data before and after. If we put data before and then we put a stripe down the middle of a road and then we have data after, we could say, oh, look, it works,
Yep,
right? So
strategies that work.
that's what I want to happen somehow. So I don't know how to make that happen. So hopefully we will get a little machine that can take some data for us. So anyway. Without having to stand there with a radar gun all day
Yeah.
as a person.
So,
Cracking down right now.
Yeah.
A lot of-
Well, it's just. People are, moving. I mean, just like last year when we had roads closed off, people are upset because they can't get to where they wanted to go. And they didn't leave early, right? So they're zooming through other streets like Burns Road and going really fast. So, yeah. Anyway, ongoing problem here. So. I'm done.
great.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Not on highway school.
Okay, thank you. Did you learn anything about drainage?
Yes, very much so.
Okay, Like-
Water detention, things like what's going on Valley Road, that big creek, what can we do to maybe slow water down, give a chance to get sediment and trash out of it before it gets into 6 Mile Creek. And the presentation was by Soil and Water out of Steuben County, and they have done a lot over there,
Mhm.
so.
okay,
And just things that I don't see why. And I had a call into Tompkins County Highway to Engineering Department today, just to. Hey, what are we doing? Or can we do on things like this, for engineering projects going forward?
Mhm.
So
do you have a present PowerPoint or something you got from the presentation that you could share or not?
I'm sure I could get it from the Steuben County Soil and Water Conservation District Office. They've done a lot of projects and they really helped. And they had data to back it up. So,
Cool,
I mean,
be interested in seeing that.
yeah, because we're talking about water resources preservation.
Mhm.
I see a lot of, just surface runoff.
Yep.
With storm events and during storms, and we could be mitigating a lot of this.
Great, okay. I'm gonna move on to the county legislators report. Dan Flake.
It's telling me I can't put my video on. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yes,
You cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
yeah. I'll see
Okay,
if I
that's all
can.
right.
I'll video you.
Okay. Thank you.
If I can, let's see.
Well, I'll start with my report. So I do have a number of things to talk about tonight.
I
First,
think you can now, Dan.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, there you are.
Okay, good. Okay, first of all, I want to talk about broadband and give you a little update. To bring you, to remind you that the county had just finished recently a long broadband study, and it made some recommendations, and we were ready to act on those recommendations. And it was basically to put out an RFP, a request for proposals, to the internet providers in this county to tell us what it would take to provide service to the 1,100 addresses in Tompkins County that don't have high-speed internet. We were asked to re-examine that question a little bit, and to examine a little further what it would take to have a municipally owned, municipally run broadband system countywide, just as Caroline is planning. So we had a Tompkins County Council of Government meetings, and that was a widespread feeling expressed there. So we, the county, have paused in progressing with this other option of just getting the internet service providers to bid. And we're asking our consultant that prepared the report to do a little more, go a little further, and show us and tell us about what it would take to do a countywide municipal broadband service. So they're working on that now. I don't think it's going to take them too long to do it. I believe, the preview is that it's going to be just a huge amount of money. And it's going to be, in my mind, it's going to be hard to figure out the economics of it, but that's what we're asking them to do, is to look at it a little more closely. So what I think is going to happen is that they're going to spend about a month working on this, come back with that as another option, and then it'll come back to the county legislature to vote on which option we want to pursue. So before I go on to my other things, are there any questions about or comments about the broadband issue?
And
Tim, go ahead.
Dan, it's Tim. I don't know if you can see me on the screen.
I can, thank you.
So I think this is a good move, actually, to just do a more comprehensive study. Is there any consideration of potentially another option of breaking out the RFP to split off the community-owned broadband towns, or to position them as appropriate operators for an RFP? In other words, having other towns apply to them to join their services.
Yes, so I had asked about this quite a bit because of Caroline and also because of Dryden, like, hey, how does this fit into this whole thing? But their solution I thought was a good one. They said, we'll have the RFP, just like you said, they're just going to split, and they're recommending each town be its own little zone, and there'll be 11 or whatever it is, zones to bid on. And so then two things will happen. One is that somebody could bid on Caroline, and then you'll have something to compare that to your own plan. It'll just give you more options and more information. And the second thing is that it'll allow Dryden, if they want, and they said they would be potentially interested, to bid on some of the other towns. So yes, all those things.
So the RFP would have to be phrased in a way that gave some weight to local or competition. I mean, one thing I really value about the idea of municipally owned broadband system like Dryden is building is that it's a lot cheaper. It's not for profit. It's, they're hooking people up for $45 a month right now, and they expect that to decrease once their bond's paid. And that would give, like Spectrum, or any of the for-profit ones, they could double the cost tomorrow, and there's no competition. So there's any thought about the need for competition going forward? I mean, if we all have one or maybe two, but we don't really have an option, in our area, because there's only, one provider and they're out to make a profit, they could just double double it or triple it, right? I mean, so is the county taking that into consideration?
So that was a big topic of the Tompkins County Council of Governments meeting. A couple things I could say about that. One is that in order to make full competition, we would have to do a countywide build out of a whole nother system. And that's a big overbuild. In other words, you know, it would cover the 90% of the areas that already have broadband. So that would be an expensive option, but that is what they're going to look at. So that's one thing I would say about competition. Another is that this will provide a small amount of competition. And I don't mean to say this is close to addressing the issue you want to see, but because there will have to be some overbuilding as somebody bids on an area that's currently unserved, they will at least sometimes have to cross over areas that are served. So there'll be small areas of competition. And then the third thing I would say, and you might not want to hear this, but our consultant does not have a great deal of faith in the Dryden business model, only because it's unproven, only because nobody's done it before. And they say that for business, the industry standard is that you're supposed to have 5 years of experience before you let somebody bid on a system. What they're saying is there's so many unknowns in the Dryden system, such as the long-term cost of maintenance and vehicles and all the other things that go into running a system, that I hope their $45 a month rate holds, or that it goes down like you're suggesting, but it is possible that that is not going to be true over the long term.
And you and I need to talk about this at some point. But the one thing it relies on is it's not just looking for the people that aren't reached yet, right? It's looking for the other more dense populations and to serve them as well. And that's how it's able to reach out to the dead end roads in one of the state forests, right? And so I guess I'm just a little frustrated that, you know, we've been waiting 15, 20 years, you know, for Time Warner and other people to come in and do something like they promised, and they don't. And so it's a little frustrating to kind of not be taken seriously, I guess, with the municipal thing. I think that the countywide, if you're just looking at the countywide, I don't know, I'd have to look at that, the feasibility report within 1 month. I mean, we've been having a feasibility report. I mean, how long have they been working? We're still getting information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not gonna.
Yeah, I mean, I know ours isn't gonna be done by Hunts Engineering, you know, it just seems kind of quick, so.
Well, I urge you to you know, stay on top of it and to review it and you know,
Yeah.
run
Yeah.
by somebody, another consultant if you want. I guess as far as not being taken seriously, I would just say this, Kate, is that the preliminary number that I've heard to do a countywide, municipally built out, municipally owned broadband system is $100 million. The other version, to just bid it out to the local internet service providers, is $7 million. That is not, you know, that you can't compare those things. I don't know how we could do $100 million project. I just don't know how we could do it.
I'll just chime in, Dan. I'm on a learning curve on this as well, and I think the key point is those are totally different things. So I agree with you. The $100 million project to do a countywide municipal broadband is a different animal than simply putting an RFP out for an ISP to serve the unserved 1,100 or 1,200 homes in the area. So, and as I know that's a lot of money, and you know, it's almost enough money that I can't put my head around it, but it's, we also know that there is infrastructure money coming that will be made available for broadband, and it's a lot of money. So our our plan, when we proposed this for the Tompkins County Recovery Fund money, was to lay the groundwork to be competitive for those funds going forward. So that's my brief defense of, or, you know, sort of, that's my rationale. I'm going into this, I'm trying to keep an open mind. I think there was an option with the RFP, like you said, with dividing it up into a bunch of pieces so that each municipality can approach it the way they best see fit. And it allows the potential, I would hope there's the potential for, future budding out of successful projects if the municipal broadband does pan out. And I feel very good about it from what I've learned. So I think it has real potential. It makes sense in terms of being able to reduce costs for and improve responsiveness for the local community. So I'm pretty psyched about it. Agreed, that's a lot of money, so.
Well,
So-
I'm keeping an open mind also. And I just, want to assure you that I was the one that stopped this from going forward so that we could consider the municipal option.
Thank you.
My mind is still open. It really is.
And we really appreciate that, Dan.
Yeah,
thank you, Dan.
absolutely. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah. All right, next topic. I don't know if Caroline has experienced this, but some of the other municipalities in the county have, so I thought I would mention is that the county has been a little slow in allocating the local portion of the sales tax to the municipality. So we collect all the sales tax and then each month we send a check to each municipality. And maybe Caroline is different because it lowers the tax bill. Sometimes they're done differently, but I just wanted to explain a little bit what's going on. We just got a new finance director. She started about a month ago and she's aware of the situation and is working on systems to get this back up to speed, and that the municipalities should be receiving their sales tax allocations on time, starting within a few months. I've talked a couple times here about the tax foreclosure auction, which is something that happens every year. So private properties that don't pay their taxes 2 years in a row are foreclosed upon, and commercial properties that don't pay their tax just 1 year are foreclosed on, and the county runs that process. Just about a week ago, there was a Supreme Court decision that changed what counties and whoever is running these auctions is allowed to do with the money. And so our auction was scheduled for, I think it was like this week. And so we had to cancel it. We're not alone. Every county in New York State's in the same boat. In fact, every municipality that does these foreclosure auctions in the country is in the state, but in particular, New York, the counties are all in the same situation. So we're awaiting word from New York State to direct us how to proceed. In the meantime, there were only 7 properties countywide that were going to be foreclosed on. They're kind of on hold. They're not being foreclosed on at this time.
Interesting.
Yeah. I can say a little more about it, it gets into the weeds. So if anybody wants a little more information, I'd be happy to tell you like what it is they expect us to do going forward. I guess the last thing I'll mention is about migrants or asylum seekers. I'm not sure exactly what the right term to say is. Talking about the people that have been coming from crossing the southern border, coming to New York City, and some of them are being transported to other municipalities in New York State, to towns and cities and counties. And you've probably heard about this. It's been quite a splash in the last month. No people in this situation and these circumstances have come to Tompkins County yet, and we are not aware of any that are scheduled to come to Tompkins County. However, the state is not always communicative as they should be, and New York City also apparently has just put people on buses and not told the municipality that is receiving them. So we haven't received any. We haven't heard that we're receiving any people, but that could change at any moment. We have done quite a bit of work internally to be ready for this, if this happens. Setting up some situations for housing and other services, food. They basically will need all services because they likely don't really have any money and they are not allowed to work. And that's maybe one of the biggest flaws in the whole system. They're not allowed to work it usually takes about 1.5 years, apparently. So if that changes, if we start getting migrants from New York City, you'll definitely hear about it. But I just want to let you know that we've already done quite a bit of work to prepare if this happens and to help take care of people. That's my
Great.
report.
Great, thank you, Dan. That's great.
Dan, I have a question or a comment for you. I went down to solid waste to renew my permit a couple days ago. And took along some small agricultural tires and they will no longer accept them. And they would accept, truck tires and things like that. But I guess I was a little annoyed that solid waste recycling has stopped taking, I understand that they shouldn't be taking large tractor tires, things that are, can't be handled easily, by hand, and I wasn't the only one. There was a gentleman behind me from Newfield. That was there to renew his permit too, and he said, I'm just gonna go home and burn them. So, I don't know if you can prevail or find out why they stopped taking them. They took truck tires and things that were bigger than the ag tires I had in my truck. But they wouldn't,
You've always taken them there before?
Yep, and they've taken them before. They said it was a change of policy starting the 1st of January.
Hal, I will look into it and get back to you. This is the first I've heard about it.
There was things like skid steer tires, and there was a front tractor tire that was, no different in size than a pickup truck tire. So I just thought, a little bit of a thing we can do to support agriculture, because it's become a point where, tires show up via UPS, and then the old ones, you need a place to get rid of them. I can take them to, well, whatever, I'd like to see them taking small, agricultural tires. I think it'd be a benefit to the farm community.
Do you know where you can take them now?
Yeah,
There is where would that be?
Maine. That way.
Not Maine, the state.
No, Maine, New York,
Maine's New York, okay,
and well over that way, the other side of Route 38. So, yeah, there's places I can get rid of them, but,
okay.
I do my business in Ithaca and like to continue to do my business in Ithaca. And, there's other, like I said, I wasn't like the only one. So.
I will ask about it tomorrow and get back to you as soon as I hear.
You don't have to do it tomorrow, Dan, but, I'd like to see a little.
Great,
If there's a good reason, so be it, but.
thanks, Dan. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments for Dan? Great, well, thanks again for following up on the broadband.
Yep.
Thanks, that's great.
Yeah. And again, the timeline is fairly short. We're expecting action to be taken in August, so.
Okay. Great, very good. All right, I will call for any committee updates if anybody has anything.
The abandoned cemeteries that the town should take care of were mowed by Memorial Day and they look good. There's a lot of stones in what's called the Morris Chapel Cemetery that's on Midall Road across from where Will Lawrence lives. If anybody knows of anybody that would like to work on something like that.
You don't mean headstones.
Yeah,
You do, no, they need to be uprighted.
or mended, just anybody that's interested in that sort of, if you know of anybody. So.
I can check with some of the scouts who are looking for like an.
But that's the sort of thing I was
Yeah.
thinking of, thank you.
Because that's,
And I know somebody that would be willing to work with them and teach them how to mend these
Mhm.
old stones and do a little bit of restoration work.
Hmm.
So,
okay, I'll check, but I don't know if I've got anybody the right age right now, but I will,
Hmm.
I'll check with my troop and a couple other troops.
yeah, good.
Okay.
I noticed there's one monument at the Central Chapel Cemetery that's been down for a few years.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's not huge, but I
Yeah,
wonder if that's something we can do about that.
yes. There's another dead ash tree there that I'd have asked Pace Tree Care about getting that taken down and out of there before it comes down, and also resetting that monument as long as they'd be in there with their stuff. It's a dead ash tree,
Mhm.
and we could do.
Well, they would reset it.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be. It's not,
It needs to be addressed, but somebody will be there with lifting equipment and,
does it just sit there? Or does it need to be mounted somehow?
it needs to be re-leveled up because it's just on that hillside, at least if we're both thinking of the same one, it's just.
Mhm.
So, kind of picked up, shimmed and then set back down,
Okay. Great.
so.
Any other committee updates? No? Okay, great. Thank you. Let's move on. So I will, so that start time was actually supposed to be 7:30, but we're a little late on that, but open discussion of the zoning law. And so last time we worked on the water overlay. And so I sent around a few changes that I wanted to put forward today. And so one of them was, I guess I'll just let's see, to modify the buffered width to 50 feet for intermittent streams. So I guess I'll just make a motion to modify the buffer width of intermittent streams to 50 feet.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Kate, and open discussion. And I'll just note, I think I noticed that this is in line with Danby's zoning law. And it's also consistent with sort of DEC's 50-foot from stream bank protection. And I think that, yeah, go ahead, Tim. You want to chime in?
No, I was just gonna say that I've been thinking of this change that we made last time as well, and I've talked to a number of people, and 20 feet seems to be somewhat scientifically negligible. I think Bill just mentioned this in his remarks, so I would be comfortable going back to 50 feet, which seems to be a reasonable distance. And that was what was recommended by the zoning commission. I believe it was, it was 50 feet right now.
I support going
Okay.
to 50 feet.
You think?
I do.
Okay.
And the one question I've got is, so say some, and this is more general, I guess. What if somebody's like, wait, there's never been water there and I've lived here for 50 years, or finds an error in this, they would come and they would talk to the zoning board, right, about that?
Well, I mean,
I'm just wondering if, I just wondered how that would work.
I don't think the zoning board would change that. It would
Okay.
be, the,
It would be like a DEC or a
Right.
FEMA map or something like that. They would have
Right.
to talk to you, and then that would get presented to the zoning.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Um,
Cal, do you have thoughts about it? Does that seem okay with you?
I'd like to stay away from intermittent streams, period. But
And why is that?
I guess, it just seems too subjective, it's running, it's not running, to me, to my mind, just a road ditch is an intermittent stream. And, if there's just not that much. What's to be gained, what's the size of the water? The watershed that it's draining to that intermittent stream. If there's small lots, maybe each square foot is precious. If it's.
But if
300
there's
acres,
small
what do you care?
lots, if it's like 75% of your lots in one of these buffer zones, right? Then you are allowed to use the land, right? Like it's 25%, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's.
I mean, I
That's not
highlighted the intermittent streams on this zoning map. And the ones I'm familiar with, they're, it's not like they're there and then gone. I mean, they're definitely creeks that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, the ones I know are, I was surprised they were labeled as intermittent because I don't remember them being dry.
I think that one of the considerations with intermittent streams is that in the past 5 years, I'd say even especially the past 10 years, but especially the past 5 years, we've witnessed across the county very, very large and severe sudden thunderstorms that have caused tremendous amount of damage in a very, very short time. And my understanding of the intermittent stream buffer would be that it would protect larger streams from precisely the kind of damage that would be wrought by those kinds of events, which when they do happen, they have much more consequence probably on the intermittent streams than they have on the regular streams that are built more accordingly. So my understanding is that's why the buffer for the intermittent streams is important.
Right, so it would slow the water down from rushing into the bigger streams if the buffer zone's there, right? Not just moving pollutants.
Or protect from pollutants, better be able to protect from pollutants, right?
Yeah, and I also think if, I think it makes sense to have a buffer that is functional. And so I sort of see 50 feet as what we need, at least.
Well, I don't think the 20 feet makes sense. So I don't think it's big enough.
I don't see where we're designating that, how the buffer strip will be managed. Am I missing something?
How it will be managed?
Yeah.
So we described that last time, right? It's in the text of the.
Yeah, I mean, it won't, we won't have impermeable surface, but, just, grass, trees. I mean, there was a thing about, cutting trees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we changed that language. We relaxed the language on that.
Yeah, tree cuttings retains a minimum of 50% of the tree canopy. In the buffer area at all times, which is that enter.
So I see that Bill has his hand up.
Mhm.
Is that a new hand or an old hand? It could be an old hand.
Could be a new hand.
A frequent hand.
Does Bill need to talk? Somebody unmute him so he could answer.
I think Jesse
Jesse's going to.
can do that.
Yeah, it is a new hand. Sorry. So just to point out that in the zoning law, it really just wants the buffer to be vegetated. Okay, and there's an appeal in the zoning law for that to be native vegetation, but it is simply, preferred. It's not, there's not demand. So in terms of management, that's the level of management. It says keep it vegetated because that's what helps keep the soil in place and helps filter stuff out. But you can use what vegetation you want, but ideally there is, of course, tree canopy to keep the stream shaded, et cetera. So that's what's in the zoning law on management, to answer Cal's question. I had my hand up slightly earlier to Kate's point. Just there is a provision in the zoning law that if someone disputes that they really are in the water resources overlay, they can bring data and maps to show they're not in the water overlay, and then the review board can waive the provisions of which would basically be the abbreviated site plan review. So in that sense, there is sort of a way to get out, a waiver. And if you can bring data to show this has not had water in it for 50 years,
Great.
there is a way for the review board to give you a pass on following the regulations of the water resources overlay.
Great, thank you, Bill. So staying with our bite by bite model, so I'd like to go ahead and call a vote on modifying the buffer width to 50 feet for intermittent streams, unless the board has more to say about it. You ready for a vote?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor? So aye.
Unanimous.
Opposed? Great, thank you. So. And then I couldn't remember if we actually did this, but to set the maximum extent of a motion to make the maximum extent of the buffer 200 feet for perennial streams in all districts except the hamlets, and 150 feet in the hamlets. I don't know that we specified that last time, but this would be where a steep slope or a wetland comes into play, and so that's not counted towards the buffer width. It's added onto it, but it's limited at those levels. So
Where are you on the,
Motion three.
I'm here in my
notes?
notes,
Okay.
I just want to be able to, I'm not changing language. I just want to be sure that we have agreed upon what the maximum extent of those buffers would be.
Oh, right here, okay.
So what I did, I just made them 2 times the buffer width. So 200
Oh, I see
feet
what you're
in the
saying.
perennial streams.
So if we're not, you're saying, so if it's a steep slope,
If
it's still not gonna go more than, this would be two.
no matter what, it won't
200.
go beyond 200
It'd be
feet,
less than 200. Okay,
200 or less.
okay.
And then I doubled for the hamlet, since we said 75 feet, I doubled that. So
Okay. Yeah, the width is capped at 200 feet. I see. So the cap would be 200 feet, except in the hamlets, it would be 150.
right.
Okay.
So I will put that forward. I don't know if anybody wants to second that or not.
Oh, sorry.
Mark,
Okay.
just to point out to everybody, this is delineated in paragraph 2. Section A. So it's paragraph 2, section A on page 67.
Oh, okay.
With those dimensions, so I don't need to do it.
Well, no, we need to.
The dimensions are,
Oh, you're just saying where it is. Yeah,
Where it is, yes.
the dimensions are in figure 2.
right.
listed.
So,
And then figure 2, yes.
right. I'm not working on language here. I'm just making sure that we have agreement on what those limits will be.
Right. No, I just thought some people can read better than they can see.
Right, and they
Okay.
can follow it that
So
way. thank you.
I will second that motion, by the way. Let's get that.
Yeah,
seconded.
seconded by Kate, and
Okay.
is there any further discussion about that?
This seems
Okay.
like a reasonable clarification to me.
Okay. So I'll call a vote. All in favor?
Hi,
Opposed? One opposed, so. Did you want to speak
No,
about
I
it
just think it's
before?
too, I think it's too much.
Oh, okay, you would have said it lower.
I would have left it where it was.
I don't think we ever set it for the 75-foot. You would have left it as it was in the text.
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
I'm just thinking of properties within, you know, the Hamlin, Brookendale and stuff, it just seems like it's a bit restricted. If somebody wanted to make some changes or add on or something like that.
Well, it's only where you'd count. It means that, so like if you've got this steep slope, right, and you've got the house, that you're gonna be able, and it's not gonna go past 200 feet, that slope will start getting counted for something. Right, it's still the 75 feet in the hamlet, except now you're gonna be counting the slope, so they actually get. I mean, right? I mean, it can't go, if your slope is really big, I can't think of a place where this actually happens.
Happens, right?
Right, that you're not
If you-
counting that whole thing, and then your house is way back here. Your house won't be in the zone, because you're over 200 feet from the creek. I'm getting really
Right.
big here.
It's capped at
So
200.
It's capped at 200, so it means that that slope gets counted,
Correct.
right? Where without that, it wouldn't be counted, that cap. It wouldn't, the slope wouldn't be counted, you start just counting the feet from way over here. And that creek, even the creek's way down there.
Yeah, without that, you might, yeah.
So actually, you know, it kind of gives some control over that. The, here, this is what I'm looking at. That figure. Here. Well, they start this thing,
Right.
so then they would count part of this, they wouldn't, it would just go to 200, so. Right, so. If this was at like 200 feet, right, or something, here.
Mhm.
They would say, oh, well, you've got to count this, then you can't go past, this whole thing can't be more than 200. It starts counting this.
Yeah.
Right. So if you've got a really long slope that goes all the way to here. That would, you know, then that whole slope isn't counted unless we get a limit on that.
Okay. Well, it passed anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
We'll bring it up again if there's more to talk about.
Yeah, they Okay.
So Mark, the only other thing that we had left to do from the last time is paragraph 6 at the end regard, and I think you provided language for that in your email.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, let's see. Before we go there, Tim,
Yeah, right.
do we need to set a maximum also for the intermittent streams if there's a steep slope? Or wetland? It seems like we should.
To look and see in the text. I don't see that for intermittent streams in the recommended law under section 2A.
what Tim's saying matches my recollection. For simplicity, the zoning commission recommended a fixed 50-foot wide buffer. There weren't the same adjustments made for steep slopes or wetlands.
That's what I thought. Yep. Thank you, Bill.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Bill. Huh,
And I would be fine staying with that.
Okay.
okay.
Hmm.
So for, I did share the modification of paragraph 6 today.
Mhm.
Did that make sense to everybody?
Mhm.
Any
Yeah.
thoughts about that? So that the language of those two sentences of that paragraph were conflicting and confusing to me, so.
Do you want to just read the new sentences for us, Mark?
I have, so let's see, each application for a building permit, special use permit, subdivision or site plan approval having a stream buffer on the parcel shall furnish a site or subdivision plan showing the boundary of the water overlay district and locations of all proposed building envelopes. Whenever a building envelope cannot be sited outside the buffer area due to lot configuration, lot size, or other natural features that prevent placement outside the buffer, the review board may require site-specific stormwater management or other construction strategies to prevent or minimize adverse impacts upon the water body. The review board may require additional data to demonstrate that the proposed activity will not result in any of the following impacts. And those are impacts A through H that are listed. Alteration of aquifer capacities, reduction of flood carrying capacities of water courses and increased hazards, deterioration of water quality, alteration of water retention capabilities, increase in siltation of surface water bodies and adjacent areas, significant disturbance to fish and wildlife populations and plant communities, impairment of natural function of a wetland or its adjacent buffer area, alteration of the flow pattern of a water course area, increase in the velocity of surface water runoff. So that's under discretion of the review board.
Thanks, Mark. I think that's a really vast improvement, both in clarity and simplicity.
Great,
Yeah, it's much clearer.
yeah,
It's,
it makes more sense.
yeah, it's not so
Great, okay,
weirdly vague. Yeah, okay.
okay. Cal,
Yeah, that seems fine.
okay. All right, well, if any,
Did it get seconded?
I'll second it.
Tim seconded it, and without further ado, I guess I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great, thank you. There's one, the language that you added last time, Kate, about
Oh, right, the,
pervious surfaces.
right, yeah, so,
It occurred to me that why
yeah,
would this be more direct language to say gravel driveways may not be paved,
I don't know, I wasn't just thinking of driveways, I was thinking about, parking lots.
gravel surfaces may not be
Gravel
paved.
surfaces, yeah, I mean, I wasn't, yeah, as I said, I want to make really clear on this, it's not just a driveway, I'm talking about like a large parking lot somewhere, right near the creek, right, like.
Over certain square footage or something.
Yeah, or large, yeah, I mean, you know, or a new road or a long driveway. You know, it's interesting because I was reading about the impervious surfaces after we talked this afternoon. And the DEC does consider, you know, packed gravel, or like basically like if it's a road, it gets packed down so it's impervious and the water sheds off of it, right?
Whether it's gravel or macadam or.
Right, right.
So
and
a
so
gravel
that's-
surface, depending on what it's built on, could be
Right.
anything.
Right, but then I'm thinking if I look at a gravel parking lot, you know, there's puddles, there's, you know, water sitting, I mean, it's not just sheeting off, I mean, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, that's what I was thinking, you know, or. road, I
But so
mean,
what's your,
so that's-
what's your?
I don't
mean,
have a good. I mean, I would like to not, I mean, if there's a gravel parking lot, I'd like to not see it blacktopped, honestly. And
So in the-
tarmacked over.
I think that makes sense in the buffer area. So what, I mean,
Yeah,
isn't
the buffer
isn't
zone.
it direct to just say gravel surfaces may not be paved?
Yes.
Sounds-
And then we don't have to argue about whether they're impervious or pervious.
Okay. Okay.
So,
I second that.
Okay,
so like the parking lot for Brookton's Market couldn't be paved if they wanted to.
Right, or the,
Or would that not count because there's a road between the creek and the parking lot? So how does that change the does that change the riparian buffers?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think. I mean, actually, I was wondering about that. This gets complicated. Maybe Bill could help with this. Like, how do the roads going through a zone? I mean, the roads. The county has the right of way on that one, you know, so it's like.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why after this, if this is to be passed, it goes to the county to be checked, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know what they're gonna do there, so. But yeah, that, or, you know, a business that's right next to a creek, you
Right.
know, so. Yeah,
Or, well, it's,
mhm.
you know, where the road's right next to the creek, but
I mean, let's also remember that there's also an appeals process.
that's true.
Someone wanted to make a reasonable appeal for particular reasons,
Based on the circumstances.
based on the circumstances and the rationale, then given my experience of a review system in this town, they'd be more than likely to win that appeal.
Yeah.
I will just chime in to say that, you know, the way the riparian buffer, or you know, the water resource overlay is defined, of which the riparian buffer is one part, roads are essentially irrelevant, so they don't play a factor one way or the other. So, and it is not a point that the zoning commission discussed. So I can't even give you any insight as what we thought about how roads might impact things. It was just not a point that ever came up. But the distances are measured from geologic features, and there's no compensation for the fact that there's a road intervening.
Okay, so, this was
That's-
seconded, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right.
So shall we vote on that language?
Yeah,
Okay. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
I'm gonna recuse myself as there's a,
You don't have to.
well, there's a difference of opinion between my neighbor and me over a driveway right now.
Oh,
and I
okay.
don't want it to be
I
a
see.
conflict of
Okay,
interest, so
that's fine.
I'm recusing myself.
Um. Great. Any other remaining issues in the water overlay section people that we need to address?
None on my end.
Okay. All right, one thing I didn't notice, this is just, editing, but. In the definitions, we need to eliminate buffer area inner and buffer area outer,
Yeah.
That's, and that's something you can ask Nan to verify.
We can just do that, yeah. Okay. Do we want to start a brief discussion of thoughts about the zoning districts? We don't want to move on to that?
We really should.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Maybe I can just quickly summarize what the zoning districts are from the
That'd be
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
review of the zoning commission. So the zoning commission identified one focused commercial area, which is on the map in a kind of almost magenta on Route 79, just west of Snyder Hill Road, abutting Thomas Road. It identified a number of residential hamlets, all with various mixed uses. So the hamlet of Bessemer, which is what we usually think of as quote unquote downtown Bessemer, Sladeville Springs, West Sladeville, which is identified as West Sladeville by signage. And the reason that the zoning commission decided to have two hamlets of West Sladeville and Sladeville was to try to respect the prime farmland that divides them. That's the prime farmland just west of Midline Road. A historical residential hamlet, Caroline Center, which is almost smack dab in the middle of the map. A hamlet of Caroline, which is at the eastern edge of the town of Caroline. Again, a historical hamlet area. Speedsville, which we know is at the southeast corner. Brooktondale. And then Center Brooktondale. I think I said Brooktondale earlier instead of Bessemer. I'll talk about I'll come back to Bessemer. Center Brooktondale, which goes out on either two sides of quote unquote downtown Brooktondale. And the reason that they broke that up is to differentiate smaller commercial uses in those areas. And then they created a district, primarily residential district, residentially focused district, Bessemer, which includes the housing on Bessemer and Wood Lane Road, goes up to 79 and then down 79 to Thomas, with some division for the focused commercial, which divides that up between Thomas and Snyder Hill Road. And to the west follows the town line, which is the shared town line with Dryden on the, on the north of 79. That's primarily it's been identified as primarily a residential district. Also given the neighborhood of Pheasant Walk to the south of 79, and the increasing number of individual houses that are being built and have been built in the past 15 years along in that area. So those are the districts that were identified. I'll just mention personally that I spent quite a bit of time in the past few weeks looking at these maps much more carefully. Again, since as liaison, I didn't really have any role in weighing in on these, and I actually found myself quite comfortable with what they came up with. I looked at a couple of areas that I wondered whether they shouldn't be tweaked a little bit. but the more that I looked at it, the more sense it made. So I'm personally fairly pretty comfortable with the maps as they're presented to us.
Great. Thanks for that summary, Tim. That's great. Any-
And all the pale yellow on this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, so
It's
that
ag.
is agricultural rural zone. I apologize. I didn't mention that, which of course is the vast majority of the land in the town. And I think that it would make sense for us to consider the map separately from the uses. I mean, they're very, very interrelated, but it would make sense to me if we were able to come to some sense of relative agreement about the nature of the maps themselves before we parse out the uses. That would just be my recommendation, and that's also how the zoning commission proceeded.
I'm sorry, what?
So Caroline is no longer in there, correct? We've got Caroline Center, but not,
That's Caroline.
that's, yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
on this,
Green. Caroline is there, it's green.
okay. Maybe this map is not.
I don't know if it's green on your version, it's green on my version that I have.
Okay, I think I might have an older map.
Yeah,
I
this
had
is,
the version, I had the version that is in the draft, the March 27th draft. So I'm using that coloration. And I think that fits the large map that was in the lobby of the town hall.
Yeah, we have it right here.
it's right here now.
Yeah.
This is core Brookendale.
Yeah,
This is Brookendale.
with all the houses built up here on Danson now, it's like 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4 houses up in there now. Feel like I'm in the summer. I don't know how that's agricultural.
Well, it's not now with that new house.
It's not, yeah.
Well, I'll just mention that I mean, these maps weren't made to specifically mime what's there now. They're to determine zones for future use. So it may well be that, I mean, there will be a lot of grandfathered lots on this land that might not conform to the use that's recommended by the zoning commission. So there might even be some houses. There are going to be houses scattered throughout the agricultural district. The agricultural district does not exclude residential housing.
Yeah, I was specifically thinking where there's like, there've been like 3 houses,
Right.
recently built on land and right next to the hamlet of Brookendale, and another one I think is going up. So it's like a little development. It's
Yeah.
not just a couple houses here and there.
There's actually a similar one just above Sladeville Springs that didn't get mapped as residential, that's already subdivided. So there well could be a few of those areas that we might want to include.
So in the hamlets, right, we're encouraging development in the hamlets, right, according to the comprehensive plan, right? That was the idea, was to like nodal development and I was just wondering, I mean, we talked before about the Caroline hamlet, about whether it should be ag or hamlet.
I mean, I'll mention that in the original version of this map, Caroline was in the ag district. And a resident asked the zoning commission to reconsider that in recognition of the historical role of Caroline as a residential district, which they did. And that was one of the many, many times that the zoning commission
There, yeah.
listened carefully to individual citizens and acted accordingly.
Does it make sense to have that as a hamlet district, because of the historical aspect, or?
No, that's what I was wondering, like what. That's what I was wondering, like as we move into the future, I mean, there's a lot of housing in there. And you know, it should be a hamlet if we're talking about. Trying to guide where people live and, you know, have smaller. But just
I
seems
mean,
really.
what that does is it will permit certain aspects of commercial development in that
Mhm.
hamlet may not be permitted in the agricultural rural zone.
Right. So someone could have a piece of property that part of it's in the hamlet zone and part of it's in the ag zone.
Yes, I think that's might be the only. I mean, I know that, and I was just discussing this with a few people from the zoning commission, because I was paying attention especially to Brooktondale, where I think that there was only one lot in Brooktondale where a very, very large parcel got divided and left it in two different zones. I would think that in Caroline, that's more likely to be the case. And my map, the map that you guys have shows parcel cut ups much more clearly than the map that I have right here, unfortunately. But I believe some of those parcels are in fact split up for that hamlet. And a cleaner way would just to be make it called ag rural, so that those parcels weren't so split up. But that was the thinking.
Bill Padalka again, just to flesh out what Tim was just saying. So when we looked at the Caroline Hamlet, one of the significant issues there is that actually there's a lot of prime agricultural land, that the top level is along that stretch. On the
Right.
other hand, there's clearly historical housing development right along Route 79. And there was some community sentiment, at least as we heard, to say, hey, we've been a hamlet for a long time. So putting all that together, the only sort of way to make that work was to try to draw the hamlet line essentially as close to Route 79 as possible in order to leave as much of the prime farmland as possible in the ag rural zone to satisfy that concern of the zoning commissions in the town. And nevertheless, allow it be a hamlet zone right along Route 79 to try to satisfy that desire of both encouraging housing density where it seems reasonable, like along the highway, but also to recognize the historical nature. So those are the balancing things that we went through. And yes, that one hamlet probably has the largest number of parcels that wind up in two different zones for exactly that reason. In most of the other hamlets in general, not always, in general, it follows parcel boundaries.
Thank you, Bill. Any other thoughts?
I'm just trying to think this through. So say I've got property with some of it in a hamlet and some of it's in ag. So there are differences in how the land could be divided up or used for businesses. And I'm just trying to think how that would work. Can't quite. I mean, I need to.
You know what we have the mapping and we know where the boundaries are.
Hmm?
And so the citizen would work the parameters on one portion of their land according to, let's say, the hamlet conditions, and then the rest would fall within the agricultural rural conditions. I mean, it's fairly straightforward as once you have the map in front of you. See what I'm saying?
Okay,
I mean, in essence, you have two different considerations for divided parcels.
Yep.
Which
okay.
is one of the reasons that I think the zoning commission tried to avoid dividing parcels as much as possible.
I was wondering about the parcels on Downey Road for Caroline Center Hamlet.
Which I'm just looking at.
Yeah,
But
that was another area where there were some divided parcels, but I don't think that many.
yeah, it's not divided parcels. It's just that there are,
Like, I mean, this one here, where's,
oh, you are looking at divided parcels.
no, this isn't, this is one parcel here, but, you know, it's just, this is just kind of an old overgrown farm field hillside, you know, I mean, here,
Excuse me.
you know, there's been building up along here. You know, there's, I mean, there's, you know, there's the core Caroline Center.
Mhm.
I was wondering why these weren't included.
Yeah, I mean, why this and not this?
Yeah. So we're looking at is the, Tim, we're looking at Caroline Center
Downey Road.
on Downey Road.
Yeah, where those lots are subdivided.
That's right. They're like.
Yeah.
separate
I,
lots,
I can't remember why those weren't included.
because behind them, there looks like there's a big field. It's not, this is an overgrown farm
Yeah.
field.
I mean, it looks like that would be a logical thing to do, would be to include them, but I can't. If Bill's still on, Bill, do you remember?
Yeah, so and I was just trying to scroll through my computer to pull up the actual tax map. So those are those, you know, like those long thin parcels that come up from Downey Road, is what you guys are looking at on the north side of Downey Road.
Yeah.
So I believe those are all in the neighborhood of 5 acre parcels. Someone, you know, did a rural land subdivision, so they kept them 5 to 6, 7 acres, and it was just felt that was sort of country-ish, rural-ish. That's what we were trying to, but you know, there's no reason that couldn't be included. I think part of the discussion was that because of the configuration of those lots, it's not like they could easily be subdivided in the future to create a lot more housing, because the amount of road frontage is tiny. They're long, thin lots. So it didn't seem that there was a lot of development potential on those lots. And so where we're trying to encourage denser housing development in the hamlets, that didn't seem to help that much. Doesn't mean it couldn't be included in the hamlet, but you know, that's my best recreation of sort of the thoughts we had at the time.
Thanks. That's what I recall now too. Thank you.
And maybe a road could have been bought up into that other section in back of it, and then they could have been sold off and five little acre thin strips.
Yeah, it could have a road up there and then a little circle or something, right? You could have a little trickle road right there.
Yeah,
Yeah. So.
there's snowmobile trail up through there, and
Mhm. Okay.
that was an open, this was all an open field 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah. I'll have to bring you up. I got it. National Geographic.
So was,
New York.
so was most of the town.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
this is where the original snow settlement is, right here.
Oh, really?
It came here. Or whatever. Back in early 1800s.
Back in the day.
Yeah. And then he met a girlfriend here,
So,
whatever.
did we get an explanation on that?
Yeah, these are long and skinny and not good for developing more houses, so they
There
felt
wouldn't be more, you know,
that you
they
couldn't
would,
have a dense
Okay,
housing.
they would just stay long skinny lots.
okay,
And maybe the thinking was that a road could come up through from here and then they could sell off another
over
bunch
here.
of long skinny lots here, but that never happened.
It might,
It might
going
have.
forward,
I doubt it, but
yeah,
yeah,
we're not gonna be here to see it.
right, exactly.
Okay, back to. This is already commercial here. That, right, that's
Yeah.
garage, that's
That's Hunt's garage.
garage, yeah,
You've got Carson's setup
Mhm.
here,
right.
and you've got Celebrations here, and then you've got the self-storage place
Oh,
here,
right.
and then you've got the church.
Oh, is the church in that?
Yeah, church is
Okay.
right there.
What's that then? What's this here? That's Celebrations. That's Celebration? What's that?
There's
Celebrations
Celebrations
there.
is right there.
Right,
That's the.
That is,
One of those is going to be Ideal self-storage you're probably looking at. There's the church, there's Celebrations and Ideal. One of the two ideal locations are all kind of clustered there. And then Carson's on the north side.
Ideal is right in front of Celebrations.
Right.
Their dots right in front of each other.
Yeah, this is Colby Maurer's place back in here.
okay, and these are little houses, and there's the trailer park here, and this is Lois's, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Lois is right here,
Okay.
those four dots right
look how
there.
little that barn is.
Hmm?
I said, look how little that barn is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's bigger than that. but-
Yeah,
But it's a
Um,
dot, there's a school
okay, Mhm.
and say there's
okay.
the Hunt's Auto Shop.
I wonder if it makes sense to, we're gonna,
House. Oh, that's this is part of Beesmer, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so they kept that house into Beesmer, and this is kind of flunked in the middle, just like, that's flunked in the middle, okay. Sorry,
okay,
Yeah.
I think it's making sense to me,
Mhm.
the lines, I don't see anything blaring about it.
This just seems,
So I got a question. If I look at Speedsville. And I compare it to the Caroline. So there's like these big lots here, right? That are within the hamlet, but should they be?
I think they were,
Are you looking at Speedsville, Kate?
It's
Yes.
Speedsville now,
So I think-
and so on Level Green Road. Like this whole area, why isn't that ag? I'm just wondering why that line,
Yeah,
why do we
because
use that
there's
line?
this planted of corn right now.
but I think they're following the lot lines
They
there.
follow,
Right.
yeah, those,
But
they follow the lot lines.
Okay, so I was just wondering, we didn't follow the lot lines in Caroline. And so I'm wondering why we follow the lot lines down here in Speedsville instead of just staying close to where the houses are right now.
I mean, I will chip in again. I think that at the time, and part of this is the time. Speedsville was looked at early in the process, Caroline later in the process. So, but the real rationale on Speedsville was, I think elbow room was what some people use, but the idea was to try to incorporate some land into each of the hamlets that would allow future housing growth at the densities that we are encouraging in hamlets. Now,
Okay.
of course, land can always be added later to a hamlet too, right? There's always that process of amending the zoning law, but that was why. Originally, as proposed, I think that the Speedsville hamlet was smaller. And one of the revisions the zoning commission made was to try to look for how might we bump this out? And those parcels were indeed, I think, originally cut. And so again, hemmed and hawed, thought about them back and forth and said, okay, well, maybe it's smarter to go ahead and add that territory and not cut the parcel. And I agree, that is inconsistent with the later decision made for Caroline. But again, in Caroline in particular was because that was prime ag land, and I'm not sure about that land down in Speedsville as to whether it was prime ag or not.
No,
Not,
no.
I would think along the west branch down in there.
Oh, yeah,
expect it to be-
this field down here
Yeah.
is prime agricultural land. This is too steep, this is too steep. I mean, this is planted corn, but it's not, I can guarantee you it is not
Yeah,
prime
okay.
ag land. This field is, it's right,
Mhm.
this land, right? Well, this here's a pasture, this is the
Mhm.
field, I think, right here, because it borders right along the
Mhm.
Boyer Creek.
Mhm.
And it's a nice flat level alfalfa field. So, and then this is pasture, it's got some heifers on it, and this is wood lot up here.
Should we have a topographical map?
It would be nice, but
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the zoning commission did work with a topographical map. This,
Oh, I'm
yeah,
sure.
yeah, we've seen, there's one somewhere that
Yeah.
shows.
Hmm.
I'd like to see the focused commercials fit in here and Beesman,
Where?
past the church.
I'm just not sure we've got houses here.
There's a 6-7 acre field right there just past the church. You know, it could be a little commercial development park.
where is it? Where are you pointing to, Cal?
Just past the Brooktondale Baptist Church.
To the west?
To the west, yes.
That abuts right up against a residential neighborhood.
There's a
So this
there's
doesn't
a
walk.
7 acre field there between the
Right.
church
Right, but
and
the
Newfield Lane and.
reason that the zoning commission made that residential, made that field part of the residential hamlet is because it abuts against an extant residential neighborhood. So
Mhm.
it was not inclined to have to zone heavy commercial right next to a residential neighborhood. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see.
That was.
There's a hedgerow down through that edge of that field, but.
So I'm not prepared to offer any changes to the districts tonight. I think, I don't know if when we go through the uses table, if it might help us think about this more. I don't
Yeah.
know, but it's 9:10.
I still got some other things we gotta do.
We've gotten a good look at these and a summary. Over.
I just, the things I'd like and see, and I'd like to see the, light commercial area there across from the school.
There's a commercial area across from the school.
Yeah, but there's that. It's just it's a little marked out where Hunt's currently is.
Right.
And I'd like to see, there.
You'd like to see what? That it'd be bigger or?
Yeah, a focused commercial area permitted, at least,
I'd like to get,
in here and here.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to see some allocation or focus for some light commercial and business friendly versus this just seems so residential. And
Can you tell me what you're pointing to, just so I can follow your comments?
Yeah, I
just
should.
the field across from the Caroline School. You know, there's Hunt's, there's Ron Gorowitz's place where the grills used to be with you know, antique cars next to the old schoolhouse.
Right.
There's the field on the corner of Ellis Hollow Road and 79. That's you know, probably something is that
It's
is
kind of like all in a
Genesee.
water buffer. is it?
Yeah, that's prime
Yeah,
prime soils. It's Genesee silt loam. I worked it for 30 years. But I just think it's just one of those things for sort of a focused light little business park or some sort
Well,
of commercial development. I don't know.
I
what-
think if we look at the, like, the focus commercial allows a maximum total building footprint of 15,000
Yeah.
feet. If you're looking at the hamlet of Beesmer, you can still have some, it's just got to be smaller, 3,000 feet.
Right.
It's not like you can't have a business there, you just can't have a big business, right?
No.
I mean, so,
I guess,
well, that's the footprint,
right.
not how tall it is, right? Now you got feet, I guess 40 feet, everything's 40 feet.
Yeah.
Al, I'll just mention that area that you did come up quite a few times in public comment over the past 2 years. And there was a strong recommendation to the zoning commission that the zoning commission not consider expanding commercial development in front of the school as a safety issue. So that did come up quite a few times, as a matter of fact.
Okay. As
And
a safety issue because there's just enough traffic and in and out. school
Trucks or whatever, yeah, maybe. It's the size. It's, I mean, they still can have businesses there. It's just how big the businesses are, so I'm trying to. Right? I mean, you could get, if you wanted to put a convenience store there, you could get a special use permit, right? In the hamlet of Beesmer.
We'll go through the uses.
Could have a commercial kitchen there. It's subject to site plan review and approval. Right? So, I mean, there are a whole bunch of things that you can do. It just has to get checked off.
You have a bakery, you could have a.
Yeah. You could have a funeral home.
What?
This says funeral home is
Oh.
SU.
I will
Special use
say, I will say regarding that there were quite a few changes made suddenly to the Bessemer district after the public hearing.
Oh,
And
okay.
some of those I'm ready to return to, but
Okay.
that's,
Yep. Okay, so industrial use light though, I'm just saying that it's not as though you can only build a house there. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of things you can do there.
and of course, always all home businesses are allowed so that you could have a major home business along there easily. But I just was remembering, Cal, when you mentioned this, that was one of the major concerns that came
Okay.
up actually multiple times during public hearings and or privilege of the floor about the precarity of the school traffic. It's
Okay.
kind of a weird, it's just kind of tough because already 79, that school traffic's so dicey. 2 or 3 times a day.
Hmm.
Shall we move on?
Yes, let's move on. Well, yeah.
Okay, so let's, for our next discussion on zoning, should we plan to revisit the districts or move on through the uses table? Start going through the uses table.
I'd recommend going through the uses table and then that could retroactively get back to the districts.
Yeah, and
that's
we'll
what I
we'll
was
circle
thinking
back
too.
to it. I think that's a good idea.
Okay. I agree with that. So,
What do you think, Hal?
Whatever. No, I mean, I just. Have we asked the town's attorney for a legal review of what it is we're going over? Or what, how is that timed? Do it have the town's attorney
so
review the commission, the final draft, and look for any things that are, you know, how, I mean, which comes first?
So, you know, so he's been, you know, he's seen the final report of the zoning commission. That's
Okay,
in his hands.
And then when we're done, he sees it again, or is he seeing
What's
it
that?
as?
Well, he
So
doesn't,
when-
want- and he doesn't want to do the work twice, so that he's, I mean, I think that what we need to do is work through it ourselves and then ask
Mhm.
him for his legal advice on the proposed law,
Mhm.
instead of doing it over and over and over again.
Definitely.
Because when we revise it, he's gonna have to review the entire law again, not just what we revise. I mean,
Mhm.
that's how he would work. So it would seem to me that we want to do our work. That's him, pass on to Guy a recommended law for his review.
I mean, are you thinking of the zoning districts or something? I mean,
or just, you know, here's the draft that the zoning commission is given over to the town board. Is there anything in it that's just, you know, like we got the thing from Aga Markets, you know, some language and stuff we ought to consider expanding or just clarifying, you know, does he, in just giving this a read through, no.
yeah, he'll do that. But I think, like Tim said, I think that should come at the end. He'll be looking for,
Okay,
you know, anything.
I
And he'll,
mean, his review will be legal, not policy.
right,
correct,
Mhm.
yeah,
yeah,
Right.
that's exactly
yeah,
right.
no, policy's not his.
Mm.
Just for
Yes.
anything that, just the legality of things.
Right,
Mhm.
so.
Oh, absolutely, we want that, sure. We need that.
Have we started on the environmental impact statement? Don't we have to do one of those?
Yes,
Or do we have to wait until we're all done with?
no, so,
But it's one of these chicken egg things for
Yeah.
me.
so we need to, draft, seeker form, is our environmental assessment form, so.
Okay,
And so Mark and I and Nan and Guy had a meeting about the seeker. And Guy and Nan are working in dialogue about developing the language for the seeker. The way that we understand the process works is we don't apply for the seeker until after we have the public hearing.
okay,
What they're doing is they're going to try to get those ducks in a row so that we'll be poised enough not to then have to do all of that work after the point of so we can move right ahead after the public hearing.
Yep.
And most of the secret stuff is boilerplate. I mean, that's kind of boilerplate stuff.
we've heard that word before tonight.
Yeah.
But they know what that is, we don't, so we empower
forgot.
them to help us with that.
I'm just, okay,
Yeah, so Cal, so since you brought it up, I mean, just to review, so the process is that the town board reviews the law. Okay. We have the public hearing. We sought Ag and Markets advice, which was actually completely voluntary, but we did that early on, which was really helpful. And then after the public hearing, and this guy clarified for us in this meeting, after the public hearing that we then submit the seeker.
okay,
Then we also submit the law to the county for its review. And the county review is mainly just to make sure that there aren't any, what would you call it, Mark? Overlap.
Impacts, impacts on,
Impact, conflicts.
yeah.
So when are we next going to discuss this document, folks?
Right,
That's a good question.
that is a good question.
So we could discuss it. Do people want to meet next week?
How about next Wednesday?
No,
No,
I can't meet next Wednesday.
I can't do Tuesday.
Can't do Tuesday,
Tuesday would be hard, but not impossible.
Thursday.
No.
You could?
Yeah,
Let me check. I'm pretty sure yes. No.
well, can we delete the first draft of the zoning commission from the town's website? This. You know, the other day I talked to somebody that's obviously, if you go to the town's
It's all-
website and you pull
all-
zoning, if you pull zoning.
The zoning
page,
link?
both drafts are still there, and it was obvious that this person had looked at the first draft.
Oh, maybe we could just move to the bottom or something.
Just-
just so
It
that
is,
it's not-
it's way at the bottom, but I don't know. We can talk about that. I mean, I like having just like the historical
Well,
archive.
just for people to realize that changes were made, people were listened
Okay.
to. We,
Yeah.
we put, you know, there was a lot of work put into this and. Right, so that's, if they really want to sit down and compare the two, right? But we don't want people to
That's
go
not gonna
to.
happen.
But I do,
You know,
right
it's-
now, it's a historical archive of
Okay.
everything the zoning commission has done, so I would be uncomfortable
Okay, I guess,
taking it down, but I'm open to, I mean, if there's a good argument otherwise, I mean, I understand what you're saying, it's,
Yeah,
but
is
the way
it
it
up?
is now, the final report of the zoning commission is right at the top
correct.
there. So,
Tie some balloons to it,
Well,
or something to make it. Bolder, maybe a little bolder,
Well,
I think it's pretty bold,
so.
I just wanted to bring that up.
So tentatively next Thursday,
the 15th.
but I don't know,
How about, is Jesse free then?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't,
I can do the 15th.
that works okay for you, Jesse?
That's okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Are you
Okay,
sure? Are you sure, Jesse? Why don't,
Yeah,
Why-
we can set it, that's fine. I've got to get my calendar out too, because the girls have all their end of school stuff
Right.
happening the next 2 weeks too, but I think 15th is fine.
okay, let's do that tentatively. If you or anybody else, has a problem, we'll rectify it. So
So 7? What
7
time?
o'clock, yeah,
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, yep.
Until,
Till midnight.
no, that's what I'm asking.
I would
7
say
to
till
9, 7 to 8:30 or 9.
Yeah,
I guess.
8:39, yeah,
Something like
nothing
that.
crazy.
Sounds good.
I think we should plan on 9. I mean, it's,
Okay,
Mhm.
give ourselves a 2-hour cushion just to do this carefully and calmly.
I think that's good.
Sounds good. Okay,
We can go over definitions sometime too.
yeah, we do have that lined up, but. Any comments on the minutes of May 17th? Everybody good with those?
They were brilliant.
They were brilliant, okay, that's good, so.
Did anyone have a chance to look at the 23rd?
I looked at them and I thought they looked good.
Those were brilliant also.
So, yeah, so the minutes of the 17th and 23rd are hereby approved, thank you. So I did add a few things. The first thing I want to I'll put forward as a motion to provide a response to the court about the file cabinetry. And my I think it's not, I still feel the way that I did before when we passed the resolution. I think we've met the court's needs for locking their confidential materials, more than met the needs. So they gave us a list that you got, Cal, right? And we got recycled great furniture from Cornell. That is just what they asked for. So I think, their options, I think, so this is what we've procured. And if there's a problem with that, and they want something else, we can put in a request for Cornell to watch for those items. And if they want particular furniture, then they're free to submit a grant to the court for that,
Administration.
if they feel the need. But as far as I don't see any reason that what we've obtained hasn't, I think it's fantastic.
nice furniture.
It's it's reusing material, and it's saving the taxpayers $7,000, and I think it's the way we should go. So I think that's my recommendation for our message to the court.
But if they want to get a grant to get what they want, we will go along with it. If we have to go along with it, or maybe we don't have to go along with it. You know what I mean?
I don't know the
If
answer
they
to that.
get a
That's a good
grant-
point.
If they can get with, to me, like with the security system. They got a grant, but we had to, okay,
Get a grant.
Oh, I see.
that's what I remember.
They didn't get a grant. They were applying for it.
Right.
But Cal's right that we had to.
I thought they didn't get the grant, but one reason was that we weren't in support of the grant.
No, there were two, there's two.
I was, yeah.
So just to be clear. The
Okay.
first time. We signed off. Mark signed off on the grant. But it was not a grant for shared space. They did
All
not
right.
grant. The second time. We highly recommended. That they apply for their grant as a shared space. Which then necessitated our collaboration. In thinking that grant and preparing the grant. There was, my recollection, a reticence on the part of the justices. To collaborate in any form whatsoever. So they never submitted the grant. Second grant.
That's correct.
Okay, so the furniture, if they got a grant and they got furniture, that would not cost the town any tax money. Right? In fact, to be bringing stuff in because it would then belong to the town court. Right.
So but there are two issues here.
All right.
One is primarily urgency and timing. They're obviously free to apply for a grant to get furniture. That is not going to happen overnight. We need this situation rectified now. We've been waiting 2 years. We have the requested materials with which they can secure their stuff. And from my perspective, there's no reason we can't move forward with this right now. If they then would like to apply for a grant to get different stuff, all my blessings, but that's going to take at least another year. So we need to get this settled now. That's my perspective.
So then we wouldn't have to, yeah, then we wouldn't have to, okay. But they do need to just use this stuff, get it out of here.
Well, they've asked us to provide them
Mhm.
furnitures
Yeah.
that would permit them to secure their material, which we have done.
Yes.
Yeah. So at any rate, yeah, so I just think,
But they don't find it adequate or whatever.
and for what, for.
Well,
we-
they can use it temporarily.
But I mean, so, you know, certainly I'm willing to listen if there's a reason this doesn't work. You know,
Yeah.
so, but
Mhm.
it's way more than adequate for what the laundry list that they provided us, and so. Anyway, I don't know, so. Does the recommendation as I sort of articulated it, does that make sense as a
Yes,
reply?
I think it does. Do you wanna, are you gonna
So-
write it up and then just?
Yeah, I mean,
Run this
I
again?
will, I mean, I just want to, yeah, so I guess.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to advise the board that again. That we are very happy to have obtained. The lockable file cabinetry that they requested from Cornell and. And from our view, we've satisfied their needs and they need to. You know, they need to proceed to secure their materials.
And establish a timetable for us to assist them in moving the furniture in and out.
Right,
They want I assume they want our assistance.
I would, you know, and
Mhm.
we're happy to assist with that, so. I've just lost my train of thought. I thought there were some other things, but it's just,
It remains to be the key issue.
well, and the key issue is absolutely unaddressed and is not acceptable.
And it's
so,
June.
yeah, so. So that's the content of the message that I would like to provide to them. And you know, we want to meet their needs, but and do that in a collaborative, cooperative way.
So are we establishing a time schedule ourselves? Not that it makes any difference, because we've done that in the past and hasn't been adhered to, but I think if we.
Right, so
But what if
We don't have a schedule.
your
you know,
letter you offer, you know, that they set a time for us to come and help move the furniture in? They wouldn't want that, I don't know.
I think we need a deadline for that to be done by. Or we'll just carry on forever ad nauseum.
Mhm. Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't think a deadline will resolve it.
What are we gonna do? Cal, help us here. What is your recommendation? I thought you were the solution to all of this, and then they rejected your furniture.
I wish. There's a lot of stuff to move. It's not just kind of move out some stuff and move in. I mean.
Okay, can we establish what that is and have a time schedule for getting that done?
And the other complication in my view, Cal, is, you know, they described a whole bunch, a big wish list.
Yeah,
That, I mean, it's absurd in my view. So, you know, we're, you know, I think with very modest ingenuity, a couple of us would be very capable of figuring out how to put some cabinets in there to serve their needs. Put in the desks that we got, and then with the corner desks that work wonderfully right in there, with lockable drawers. And, you know, we could do that. Richard Brooks would probably help us if, you know.
We can hire movers to do that if we have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that would be preferred, then it might well be preferred by the,
Do you think it's more complicated than that? Or, you know, structurally?
I do, but. No, there's,
But they wanted the place painted as well.
they wanted to paint it, the.
Yeah, well, that's,
taken up
that's,
And a
and the
rug.
floors refinished,
that's, okay.
yeah. So, the other side is if they can come up with the money for it and a court judiciary grant that's, you know, hey, we want to refurbish the court's chambers.
That's, like Tim said, that's down the line. That's not what
Mhm.
we're dealing with now.
This can be temporary. You know, I mean. We could say you can use this temporarily because we need to resolve this other thing and.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I guess all I'm gonna say right now is what I said originally, that, you know, you know, we need to move on. You know, we procured the furniture, you know,
Mhm.
it's great, and we're happy to move it in, and, you know,
I think.
if you want, you know, proceed on your own to find other furniture or replacements, then that's your business, but something like that.
well, I think we need to articulate that we are committed to shared responsibility for the historical town hall. And that includes providing the justice offices with adequate secure furniture as requested. We've been happy to do that. We now need to schedule for implementing it. And of course, we would be open to any future alterations. Open discussing future alterations. But
Okay.
it's a stage.
Is that a motion, Tim?
That's a motion.
I
make a
like
motion.
your language.
I'll second it.
So, seconded by Kate, so all in favor?
Aye,
Aye, okay, let's move on.
please.
At Bruce Road.
So I did get the RFP from Gandhi today for Egress Road, so he sent the plan documents, and so I would like to go ahead and advertise that. He has you know, we want to do that right away. If I put the ad out in the morning, it'll be published on Saturday, and
You know, somebody's.
Okay.
so I'll offer a motion to approve the Egress Road RFP and bid process. Second by Cal. Any further discussion? So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Great, thanks. And then I forwarded you today the contract document for the highway project. And I did get back one small insurance suggestion recommendation from Guy, and they approved that, and it's irrelevant, but it isn't, you know.
That was that stuff that was in red, right?
Mhm.
Well, yeah, this was additional, the red stuff was that what Guy added, so, anyway. I would like to offer a motion for me to sign the contract for that AIA contract document for the project. Question, Cal, do I have a second? You
Yeah,
can't start the discussion until I get a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, Cal seconded, so.
The Tompkins County Sustainability Coordinator, who would that be? And to me,
Terry
that,
Carroll.
does that add another, do we need that?
I described that, that's not in the AIA document, is it?
Yes,
Oh, it is, okay,
section 1.6.
as what? A consultant or something?
Sustainability
Yeah.
Coordinator.
Yeah.
And just getting somebody else in the mix, or with Labella and just, I don't know, or just who it is, you know the person, and that there's somebody we can work. It's not some sort of amorphous.
Yeah, it's Terry Carroll, you know him, right? No? Or, anyway, he's helped us a lot with our clean energy community stuff. But
Yeah,
I think,
I know the name, but
Yeah.
I can't think.
anyway, I don't see any reason to take it out. I don't wanna,
I just wanted to bring it up. I don't know,
okay, I mean,
just to talk about it, nothing else, just to talk about it for a little bit.
okay. Great,
I would hope that Labella would do all the engineering and architect work, and we
they
would
will.
have to get, trying to all of a sudden, it's adding another.
I want to be sure that this project is done as sustainably as we can do it, and I think it's good. They're not in a role of control over they're advisory, right? So it's not,
Yeah, I'd like it as sustainable as possible too. I just would hope that Labella could handle the whole. That's my whole spiel about it.
Okay.
Yes, I'm not trying to. I want it to be sustainable. Gotta be. So.
Great. So are you okay with leaving Terry in there or the
Yeah,
sustainability coordinator?
I'm okay with it. It's somebody we know, we've worked with, and
I think it's a good thing to be coordinating something like this with these efforts at the county level and to,
maybe they know.
collaborating
Okay.
towards our, carbon goals, like zero carbon. So I think that's a really good thing. So,
Okay. Yep.
great. Okay.
Let's
Thank
get
you.
signed up.
I'm glad shall we vote on this? Everybody comfortable with it? So,
Yes.
this will trigger the first phase where they do the preliminaries. They're gonna do some borings of the property. They're gonna do the planning phase.
Surveying
With that,
surveying and.
yeah, but I was thinking of whatever they call it, the programming. They'll do the programming, so it's a significant cost. It was $110,000 for this part, so. Okay,
Just a drop in the bucket.
just a drop in the
I
bucket.
know. First drop.
Okay, so if there are no further questions or concerns, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great, thank you. I will offer a motion to enter executive session to discuss proposed acquisition of real property.
Hey, Mark, before you do that, do you have anything to add to the agenda for the business meeting?
Oh, thank you, Jesse. I was thinking about that earlier. Certainly the agenda meeting. So now we've scheduled this special meeting. I'm sure a major part of the business meeting will want to devote to continued discussion of the zoning law. Does anybody else have anything for the business meeting that they can think of?
For July, can we just go over kind of budget, where, how we look at, how the budget's looking halfway through the year?
Yeah,
No, just
yeah,
Bruce,
that would be the,
July meeting.
Sure.
Different agenda meeting. Well,
well,
our
that's
business
a business
meeting,
meeting. We can look at the trial balance.
yeah,
See where it is.
just go over it as a board.
Well,
Excuse what?
before you go into executive, can I make observation or just or statement real quick?
A statement?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. And,
Okay.
First off, I want to apologize because I would have gone over these sections of the zoning had I known we were going to discuss it that much. Because as a member of the public on an agenda, when it says that from 8:30 to 8:35, it seems to me that we're just gonna say this, and this, we'll discuss at a regular meeting. Just, you know.
Oh, because you said from 8:30 to 8:35. I think you
Yeah,
meant
I mean,
7:30.
5 minutes.
Oh, yeah, I have
Like
the,
to the public.
yeah.
Me, it's not,
No, I had the times off there, so.
I think you meant 7:30 to 8:35.
okay.
That's
well,
my
I
guess.
just didn't- I saw that, I thought,
Yeah,
oh,
that's a
we're just
mistake.
gonna discuss what's. I didn't, so I apologize, but, and I'll talk to Kate, I'd like to talk to you sometime about that. The broadband, because you made some good.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, okay, good night. So let's see. Anything else for the business meeting? I can't think of it right now, Jesse. We'll add it in if we think of it later, and maybe even add it in next meeting, or Tim, did you have a comment?
Mark, yeah, do we have, do we need to line up the battery storage law for consideration at some point down the road? How do we
Yeah.
start?
I've started on that, and I just haven't gotten back to it, so I will double down on that, and I need to get it introduced, so I'll get it to you soon.
And on the battery storage law, as long as you haven't bring that up under the definitions, it's put at 600 kilowatt hours. New York State, or not New York State, the Energy Information Agency now puts large at a megawatt. And small as anything less than a megawatt.
Let's discuss it later, okay?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It's past my bedtime.
Um,
My brain is not working. now.
Yeah, so with that, do I have a motion on the table to enter executive session?
Sure.
Was that seconded?
Need a second.
I need a second.
I'll second. Nope.
I'll third it.
Okay, Kate got that. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Opposed? So we're entering executive session at whatever time it is. It looks like 9:49.
Yeah.
So thanks, everybody, for coming.